Hello and welcome to Technology Can Work for You. My name is Jessica Barch and I'm a program manager for the Parkinson's Foundation. The Parkinson's Foundation will be hosting virtual events each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. To learn more and to register, please visit parkinson.org/pdhealth. You can also visit this page to view past archived PD Health at Home programs. So before introducing our speakers today, we'd love to ask you, our audience, a question pertaining to today's topic. If you have any technical issues with the poll or at any time, please use the Q&A icon and we'll respond to you right away. So right now you'll see the question come up. Which is your main computer? The one that you use the most? Is it a desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone? And I can see that you guys are voting right now, so thank you. We'll just give this a few seconds until the results will show up. All right, so it looks like majority, 58% use laptop the most, and that's followed by desktop, tablet, and then smartphone. Thank you, everyone. All right, so now it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker today, Daniel Jones. Daniel is an independent instructor providing older adults with computer, internet, and social networking skills to enhance their lives and keep them connected. His computer courses and seminars break down the barriers of fear and intimidation, often associated with learning new technology, providing a greater understanding of the options and tools available through a patient, fun, and easy to learn approach. Daniel provides both private in-home one-on-one lessons as well as group instruction at a variety of senior communities and libraries in the Rochester and upstate New York area, teaching over 5,000 people to date. In 2010, Daniel received his certificate in gerontology through St. John Fisher College and is a certified Eden Alternative Associate. Thank you so much for joining us today, Daniel. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Okay, let me just, so thanks for attending today. So just real quick, I just want to go over some of the things that we're going to cover today. So today I'm going to provide you an overview of some of the apps that are important tools for both staying connected and navigating your way through this age of social distancing. And what I've done here, the apps that I'm going to share with you today, I've kind of put them in two categories. First category is video chatting apps, apps like Skype, FaceTime, and Messenger. We're all using Zoom today, so you are familiar with you are familiar a little bit, at least, with Zoom. And then the other one is online ordering. I'm going to be talking about Grubhub, Instacart, and a little known app called Libby. I'll spend about 5 or 6 minutes per topic. And I will be giving you a brief description of what the app is, what the benefits of the app are, and so on. Because we have such a short period of time today, I'm not going to be able to dive really deep. But the good thing is you will all be receiving a follow-up email. And in that email, you will have a link to a whole bunch of how-to step-by-step instructional videos that I have created specifically for this Zoom webinar today. So my goal here is to increase your knowledge, increase your confidence, and explore some apps that are out there that you will benefit from. So I'm going to share my screen here. And okay, so before I get too deep in here, I always talk about fear. The single biggest barrier I run into as an instructor is fear. Fear that I'm going to look stupid. Fear that if I get on Facebook, everyone's going to know everything about me. Fear that if I do my banking online, I'm going to lose all my money. Fear I'm too old to learn, whatever that is. And part of my goal as an instructor is to help you overcome that fear with giving you knowledge. And this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Fear is the mortal enemy of creativity, innovation, and happiness. I think there's lots of things that hold us back in life, but I think in my experience, fear is definitely the biggest one when it comes to learning. One of the questions that I get almost all the time, especially with folks who are new to smartphones or new to tablets, is what exactly is an app? So I'm going to break that down a little bit. So the most popular definition of an app is software that typically runs on a tablet or a smartphone. So that could be an iPad, that could be a Kindle, that could be a Samsung Galaxy, that could be an Android device. Apps, the term app is just short for software application. So all those icons that you see on your smartphone and on your tablet, and even on many laptops and desktop nows, are referred to as apps. And it's just simply short for software application. And apps are a means of getting stuff done quickly and effectively. And you can purchase and download apps using either the App Store or the Google Play Store. And this just depends on what platform you are on. If you're on an Apple device, you have to use the App Store. If you're on an Android, you're going to use the Google Play Store app. From last count, Apple just about 3 months ago made their 1 millionth, or I should say registered their 1 millionth app. So there are lots of apps to choose from. I would say the vast majority, I'm just going to take a stab here, I would say 75% are free. Other apps might be 99 cents, $1.99, $5.99, $10.99. It just depends on what the app is. So I've got a short video here I want to share with you that dives a little bit deeper into apps and gives a little bit more of a background.
The chances are you've been using apps for years. Your home or work computer has apps like a spreadsheet program, calculator, or photo editor. Recently, these apps or applications evolved in a big way. Let's start with platforms. You know, a place to put things. A table, in a basic sense, is a platform. You plug in some plates, cups, and flatware, and it turns into a great place to eat. Computers work the same way. They create platforms for software applications. A spreadsheet and an accounting app can turn a computer into a business tool. Music and video apps can make a computer a studio. For most of their history, apps have seemed big and expensive. We often bought them at a store and loaded them onto a computer with a disk. And most of these apps didn't connect to the internet. Recently, platforms changed in big ways. Our mobile phones and tablets became useful platforms just like our computers, and this enabled a different kind of app. Instead of big, expensive programs, many apps became smaller and cheaper. Instead of coming in a box or taking hours to download, they could be purchased or downloaded for free from the internet with a click, even on the go. This made apps collectible. For little investment, we could collect apps on our devices that reflect our needs and interests. One person's collection may focus on gaming, another business, or both. Now, apps may wake you up in the morning, give you a snapshot of the news, play the music you like, help you get to the airport, check you in, and help you read your new book, all from the palm of your hand. To support all these new apps, we need online marketplaces that make them easy to purchase and download. This way, small teams and large organizations have a way to market, give away, or sell thousands of new apps. And these new apps have another advantage. Many are built to work with the internet. This means they can back up your work, play your music, or connect you with friends wherever you are without opening a web browser. But it's not just phones and tablets. Computers, browsers, social networks, and gaming systems have all become platforms for a new generation of apps. So apps aren't really new. What have changed are platforms and marketplaces that make them easy to purchase and collect for whatever you need to do.
And again, if you're an Apple user, you have to go to the App Store app on your device to download. That's the only place you can download apps onto your iPad or your iPhone. And if you're on an Android device, you're going to use the Google Play app. So this is just a demo here of kind of two different screens. On the left, we have the iPhone, and on the right, we have an example of an Android. So your phone comes with these apps already built in. A lot of the people that I teach, they only use the apps that come with their phone. I've never counted, but I probably have about 150 apps on my device. I don't use them all the time. Some I use every day. Some I use multiple times a day, once a month, twice a year. It just depends on the app. So you're going to tap on that app for either the App Store or the Google Play. And each one of these has a search bar where you can type in either the name of the app you're looking for, or you can type in the category of the app in case you don't know the name of the app. So we're all doing Zoom right now. Some of us are on laptops, and some of us are on smartphones and tablets and desktops. So Zoom is both an app in terms of the term app, but it's basically software. And all the apps that I'm going to share with you today, FaceTime, Skype, Messenger, Grubhub, Instacart, and Libby, all these apps are available on all platforms. So it doesn't matter which device you're using, all these apps are available to you. So let's get to the first category, which I call video chatting apps. Again, we're all using Zoom right now, so you have some idea of how video chatting works. But I would say that these right now are the three most popular video chatting apps. And FaceTime is an Apple app. Skype is a Microsoft app. And Messenger is a Facebook app. They are all intended to help you do a video chat. And here I have an example of both an iPad and an iPhone. And these apps come built in. So it's not, you don't have to download the app. You don't have to pay for the app. It already comes built into the system. So whether you're on an iPad or an Apple device, or whether you're on an Android device, you're going to have video chatting features available to you built into the device. And these devices, you can have a single chat with one person, one-on-one. And just like Zoom, you can also have multiple people. I believe with the Apple, I believe you can have up to 33 people. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the number that sticks out in my head. And again, these apps are available whether you're on Android, whether you're on Apple, and it doesn't matter what phone you're on. Some video chat tips I want to share with you, and I would say this is the most important one. Always keep the other person in mind. What do I mean by that? I mean, make sure that I'm keeping you in mind when I'm speaking to you, that I'm looking into the camera when I'm talking to you, that I speak slowly and clearly, that I'm aware of my surroundings, I'm lit well, there's nothing in the background that's too distracting. When it comes to lighting, make sure that you're lit from the front. That might sound kind of obvious, but I've been in a lot of video chat calls where the person is very dark. They've got lights on behind them, or they have the windows open behind them, but there's all this backlight that's flooding in, and the person's actually dark. I can't see their face because there's so much backlight. So you want to make sure you're lit by the front. And it's always good to maintain eye contact. And it's so easy to look down at the screen and look to see who you're talking to. But if you can, get into the habit of actually looking directly into the camera. Be mindful of what you're wearing. Be mindful of the camera angle. So I've I've been on lots of Zoom calls, and I'm sure you all have, where you're on a Zoom call with somebody and they're down here like this, and they're completely unaware of what they look like. So always make sure that your the camera angle is a good angle. You're as straight on as possible, so the person's not looking up your nose or whatever that might be. If you are using an iPhone, or I should say a smartphone or a tablet, I suggest that you put it on a shelf or something stable, so you're not holding the device in front of your hand, because as you shake and as you move, sometimes that blurs the camera, and sometimes there's a buffering problem where people look kind of jagged. All the latest desktops and laptops and tablets and smartphones, they all have built-in speakers, they all have built-in microphones, they all have, most of them have two cameras, a front-facing and a rear-facing camera. I suggest getting external microphone and headphone, because it allows me to hear better, but it also allows you to hear better because I'm speaking directly into the mic as opposed to the microphone that's on my desktop computer, which isn't as good. So, again, everything I'm going to be sharing with you today, you will receive a follow-up email with videos, step-by-step instructions on how to use all of these apps. So to wrap up the video chat app, one thing I want to say here is that I would say the most popular ones are these three here. Zoom is definitely probably the hottest video chatting app, but it was really designed for business. Zoom has been around for years, but it's been mainly used for business purposes, to have a large conference with someone where I can share my screen and so on. So if I'm doing a presentation like here. With FaceTime and Skype and Messenger, I can't do that. They're all starting to change though, because Zoom is very hot right now. But I would say, you know, the main differences between Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, and Messenger is that Zoom is the ideal platform for conducting a large scale meeting, whereas the others are better suited for informal gatherings like talking to your friends and family. They're just a little bit more casual. There's less bells and whistles. It's FaceTime, Skype, and Messenger are very straightforward in terms of ease of use. Now, the big player that is right around the corner is Google, okay? Zoom got hot during the pandemic and is still very hot, but Google has their own video chat apps. Google Duo, the one on the right, has been out for a while, and that, I would compare that to FaceTime and Skype. It's more of a casual type thing, where Google Meet is a direct competitor to Zoom. And I will be very interested to see what happens 6 months from now or a year from now to see if Zoom is still around. Zoom might be purchased. A lot of these companies do get purchased, but Google is such a huge player that I'd be very interested to see how quickly Google Meet accelerates in the market in terms of use. Okay. So that's it for video chatting. Let's talk about Grubhub and what Grubhub is. I have two very short videos to share with you, and they talk about the frustration of the old way of ordering food. Calling restaurants is the worst.
Played by Psychos.
Hi, can I get 3 tacos?
Please hold. Can I take your order?
Hi, can I get 3 tacos?
Wait 1 second, please hold. Can I take your
I just
order?
want 3 freaking tacos.
Wait, please hold.
Yep, cue the music. Okay, okay.
Don't get put on hold. Get the food you want from the restaurants you love. Grubhub, delivering your favorites.
Don't phone in your order. You don't have to phone in your order anymore. You can do it all online.
Last 4 digits, 4098. 8.
You should use Grubhub instead. Just order your food online and I'll never get your credit card information wrong.
Thanks.
You have a lovely home.
Get the food you want from the restaurants you love. Grubhub, delivering your favorites.
I came across those commercials the other day and I threw them in because I thought they were perfect. So Grubhub, what exactly is Grubhub? Grubhub is a leading online and mobile food ordering platform with the largest and most comprehensive network of restaurant partners. Grubhub features over 300,000 restaurants and is proud to partner with more than 225,000 of those restaurants in over 4,000 cities in the United States. With Grubhub, you can get pickup or delivery. Grubhub generates revenue primarily when diners place an order on the Grubhub platform. And when I say Grubhub platform, I mean the Grubhub app. But again, you can order Grubhub through your laptop as well as your desktop as well. Restaurants pay a commission, typically a percentage of the transaction, for orders that are processed through the Grubhub platform. The minimum dollar amount of your order varies from restaurant to restaurant. And that will be noted to you as you're going through the ordering process. There are other popular food delivery platforms out there. Grubhub, I would say, is probably #1 right now. DoorDash and Uber Eats. If you have experience using Uber or Lyft, Uber has a whole kind of private division dedicated to delivering meals. Grubhub has provided more than $5 billion in gross food sales to local takeout restaurants as of 2018. It processes over 467,000 daily orders. It serves 17.7 million active diners and has sent more than $1 billion in total tips to drivers. So for some drivers, it's actually a great revenue stream. I've got one friend who is a Grubhub driver, and he kind of does it kind of on the weekends as just kind of like extra income. So it's nice. It's nice in that aspect. So I'm going to do a demo on Grubhub here. So I'm going to switch over to my smartphone here. Okay, so I've got my smartphone here, and I'm going to do a very, very, very kind of down and dirty, quick tutorial of Grubhub because we don't have a lot of time. So I'm on my phone here, so I'm going to swipe. I've got all these different apps here, but I'm going to find my Grubhub app, and there is my Grubhub app. So I'm going to give that a tap. And it brings me to the restaurant section. And I'm not going to go through how to sign up for Grubhub and all that. Again, you can check out the video that's going to be sent your way. But I already have my address already put in place up here. So at the very, very top is my address. And I can change that by simply tapping on it and entering a new address. Or if I just happen to be home, But if I'm at a different location, I can just click on use current location, and the built-in navigation that comes with the iPhone will locate me. So I can kind of scroll down to see what restaurants are available. And what they're going to do is they're going to show me the restaurants that are nearest to me based on my location. But if I'm interested in a particular cuisine, I can browse by tapping on cuisines. I can hit cancel, or I can just type in the name of the restaurant or the type of food that I want right now. So I'm going to type in, tap on there, my keyboard pops up, and actually, oh, you know what? Sushi. That sounds good. Let me tap on sushi. So when I tap on sushi, it's going to bring up the sushi restaurants that are nearest to my address. And here is one of my favorite places, the Plum House. So I tap on the Plum House. Gives me the address. It gives me some brief, there's 162 reviews. So it's received 4.5 stars out of 162 reviews. That's pretty good. And I can basically just scroll down here and see what the menu items are. So if I want to order, let's see, I want to order, what's one of my favorite things here? Cocky fry. So I'm going to tap on cocky fry. It says, how many orders do I want? I'm going to get 2 orders, so I tap that plus right there. It adds it to what's called my bag. So I can tap on 1550, and I'm going to scroll down, and let's order some miso soup. So I'm going to tap on miso soup. I just want 1 order. So I'm just going to add that to my bag. And well, let's just go down here, and I'm going to order Manhattan Bridge. And I'm going to order 2 of those as well. Add it to my bag. And down here in the lower right, it has my bag. So I'm going to tap on it. It says I have 5 items. It gives me my total. I can add a tip, depending on how much I want to tip. I can do a custom tip, or I can add whatever it is I want. In this case, I'm going to add 20%. My is going to be $58.78. I go continue to checkout. And this is where I'm going to stop. So if I wanted to pay, I would simply tap on checkout with PayPal, or I'm sorry, with Apple Pay. But you would use a credit card or PayPal or Apple Pay. There's lots of different ways you can pay. But you are going to have to, when you create your account, you're going to have to give them a credit card and so on, just so they have that on file. So that's real quick. Let me get back to my other part of the presentation. And we'll pick up where we left off. Instacart. What is Instacart? Instacart operates as a sometimes same-day grocery delivery service. Customers select groceries through a web application from various retailers, and the order is delivered by a personal shopper. So you can get grocery items from your favorite grocery store, pharmacy. There's a whole bunch of businesses, retail stores that are available. Up until the end of 2017, Instacart only had operations and services in the United States. I believe Instacart is now in Canada, and I want to say they are in the United Kingdom, but I could be wrong on They were founded in 2012.
Everybody needs fresh food. That's why.
Let me do that again. So here's just a little quick video on Instacart.
Everybody needs fresh food. That's why we deliver it to your door. Just shop from any of your favorite stores and we'll do the rest. Browse every product you can imagine. Even that organic, antioxidant, gluten-free, fair trade honey from the farm over the hill. Yeah, that too. Your order is hand-picked by a professional human, unlike the other guys. Enjoy exclusive deals only on Instacart and get your groceries delivered today or whenever you want it. Saving time for the things that matter. Download the app and get your groceries delivered today.
So the concept here with Instacart is it's very similar to Grubhub in the sense that when I log in through Instacart to my favorite grocery store, I can see all the items. It's just a menu of items, and I can order what item I want. I can search for a particular item. I can order multiple items or a multiple number of the same item. So Grubhub, Instacart, conceptually, they're very, very similar. Again, there will be a how-to instructional video on Instacart as well. Instacart primarily makes money through a delivery fee, which comes to $5.99 on orders over $35 and $7.99 on orders under $35. The minimum order amount you can make through the service is $10. So they're not going to deliver, you know, a loaf of bread for $1.99. It's got to be at least a minimum. And if you sign up for Instacart Express, you will get free delivery as part of that membership. And that membership is either $10 a month or $99 a year. So there are basically 3 steps to Instacart. Shop your favorite locally grocery store. Shop from your iPhone, your Android, your iPad, your desktop, your laptop. Shop, pick out those items. Then you're going to schedule the delivery, have your groceries delivered in as little as an hour in some cases. And you can also schedule your delivery for later in the week. And then you get the groceries delivered to you. Again, these apps have been hugely helpful during the pandemic. Who shops for you? That is an Instacart personal shopper. They fulfill your order. They pick through the produce. They pick the best produce for you and so on. They will carefully select the items that you have asked for to be picked up. That is Instacart. Now let's meet Libby. Libby is a very, very cool app. And I put this in the series because it's one of those things where many libraries are still closed right now, at least in the US here. And, or they have very limited hours or have very limited attendance. So what exactly is Libby? Libby is the one-tap reading app from your library. Libby, like Instacart and Grubhub and all these other ones that we're talking about, is a free app where you can borrow electronic books and digital audiobooks from your public library. So again, with a tablet, lots of people read books now on their tablet. I can't read it on my smartphone because my smartphone's a little too small for me to read. But so it is a library app, and you can stream books through Wi-Fi, or you can use your mobile data plan, or you can download the books for offline use and read them anytime, anywhere. That's a really convenient. So because lots of times you might be traveling and you might not have Wi-Fi, or you might not pick up a cell signal, but you want to read your book. You can download the book ahead of time onto your device and read it anytime, anywhere that you want. And I've got a short video here on Libby. Oh, sorry. All you need is a library card to get started. So a quick little video on Libby.
Meet Libby, the free one-tap reading app from your library. With Libby, you can borrow free ebooks and digital audiobooks from your library. All you need is a library card. When you open Libby for the first time, she'll help you find your library. Then, you can explore your library's collection and borrow titles or place holds instantly. On your shelf, you'll find all your loans and holds, as well as any titles you've tagged. Loans are automatically downloaded for offline use when you're on Wi-Fi. If you're using mobile data, you can stream titles until you're on Wi-Fi. Your loans are returned automatically on their due dates, so you never need to worry about late fees. Tap Manage Loan to see more options for each title, like returning early. Tap a title to open it and start reading. If you belong to a library in the United States, you'll see the option to send most ebooks to Kindle or to start reading in Libby. Use the bottom navigation to switch between your shelf, your library, and your current read. In the Libby menu, you can add a library, change your app settings, get help, and more. Download Libby to start borrowing today. Happy reading!
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to turn off my screen share here. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel. Oh my gosh, that was so comprehensive and very interesting. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank
for
you.
sharing that today. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to give a quick reminder that questions can be submitted clicking on the Q&A icon in the black banner on the bottom of the viewing page. And we are going to start our second speaker here. So I'll wait, there we go. Now it's my pleasure to welcome our second speaker, Angela Roberts. Angela is a speech and language pathologist, is an assistant professor of communication sciences and disorders in the School of Communication at Northwestern University, with interests in language and acquired cognitive communication disorders in adults with neurodegenerative disorders. Angela, thank you so much for taking the time today, and welcome.
Thank you. So it's wonderful to be with you all today. And as a speech language pathologist who's been practicing now 26 years, it's always great to learn new information. And Daniel's presentation certainly offered a lot for me to learn from. And so I think that's great. I think we have another poll. Is that correct? Do we need to get the poll up? So I think we have this poll. So compared to February of this year, before coronavirus closures, I used my computer, tablet, or phone, and we've given kind of 5 responses there. So really the gist of this is knowing how you use your kind of phone for healthcare or for making social connections with others differently than you did before the pandemic. And so Danielle, I'll let you kind of supervise this.
Yeah, we're just waiting for a few more responses, but we are getting some answers. So I'll give it a few more seconds and then I'll read off the results. Okay, so it looks like 43% of our attendees use their computer, tablet, or phone much more for healthcare and social connections compared to February of this year. The second runner-up was that people use their computer, tablet, or phone somewhat more for healthcare and social connections. So those two are our two most answered choices.
Thanks, Danielle. So that makes today's topic pretty relevant in terms of this kind of notion that we're all using telehealth for the most part much more than we did even earlier on in this year. But it's important to remember that telehealth is not new. We have had telehealth as part of medicine for a very long time now. Even someone old like me who's been practicing for over 2 decades, we were using telehealth to develop and deliver rehabilitation innovation in interventions even in the 1990s. And so something as simple as a telephone visit with your doctor is actually a form of telehealth. What has changed, though, is the frequency that we use telehealth, and as Daniel so rightly pointed out, the technology that we're using for telehealth. So this is a very recent report from the US government that looks at the number of primary care visits among Medicare beneficiaries. So these would be people typically 65 years or older in the US between February and early June. And so what we saw was we saw that kind of early in January, February, about 0.1% of all Medicare visits for primary care were conducted through telehealth, and that rose to over 40%. While we're starting to see the trend go down as more facilities open up, the same survey actually showed that physicians and other healthcare providers such as rehab therapists actually believe that this trend will continue. So while we'll see the number of telehealth visits reduce, most physicians estimate that between 20 to 25% of all primary care visits will continue to be conducted through telehealth for several years to come. And this appears to be a permanent shift in medicine. And so as a result, you actually see a lot of new assessments and new interventions being developed every day for the purposes of pulling together new ways of connecting with people through this telehealth modality. And so today, what we're going to focus on are really two things in the few minutes that we have together. The first is thinking about how to set up for your telehealth visit. And the second is how to get the most out of your healthcare visit. And so thinking about this from the appointment stage all the way through the visit itself. And that's what I'm going to walk you through, using some of the techniques that we have used over time in telehealth, and some information that comes from the interventions that we deliver through telehealth as a part of my research lab. And then other tips and tricks that just come from being a speech language pathologist and knowing how to connect with people who have Parkinson's disease, since that's been the focus of my practice for almost the entirety of my career. So we think about making the appointment. Daniel pointed out to us that there's a lot of different devices that can be used, from your desktop to a tablet to a laptop to a phone. And one of the things that is important to clarify when you make your appointment with your physician's office is what is the device that you will need. So some physicians, the software that they're using runs best through a desktop, and for others it runs best through a tablet. And so ensuring that you have the right device for the visit is important. It's also important to ask the person that you're scheduling the appointment with how to expect the link or the call from the physician's office. I had this happen as well at the beginning of the crisis back in March, where I had a physician's appointment and the physician was supposed to call me, but they never did. And so I thought I missed my appointment. It can be very confusing for all of us. And so really getting clarification on whether or not you'll get the link via email, whether they will call your phone directly through a software application or even through the traditional telephone. And here it's important to confirm with your doctor's office that they actually have your email and your phone number information correct in their files. As Daniel also pointed out, there are lots of different apps for connecting with people, whether through Zoom or Google Meet. And it's important to know that different physicians' offices also use different types of software to conduct their telehealth appointments. Some of them conduct their appointments via Zoom, which is has a HIPAA compliant system that protects privacy. Others use WebEx. So there are a number of kind of software platforms, and you want to make sure which one your physician intends to use so that you can have the software downloaded. If you need to register for an account, then you've had the chance to do that. And I always recommend that people try to get the name of someone that you can contact from the physician's office who can help you if you run into technical difficulties. This is probably one of the key things that I have learned over 2 decades of practice. And I think this is a good habit to get into, whether or not you are thinking about an in-person visit or whether or not you are thinking about a televisit. And that is to remember to create a problem list ahead of time. Telehealth visits are often much shorter in duration. And because they're shorter in duration, and your physician may really have this real phenomenon of what we call Zoom fatigue, meaning that they have been on video conference after video conference after video conference for hours, sometimes in the same day, then it becomes important to remember that their patients may be short. They may not absolutely be at their best in that moment in time. And so you want to have all of your concerns and all of your healthcare problems aggregated in a list that you've thought about before your visit. And I recommend that you kind of rank order those in terms of which ones are most problematic for you, so that if it happens that your physician only ends up having, for example, 15 or 20 minutes for your visit, you can really knock off those items that are most concerning for you and that you need your physician's most focused attention for. And I encourage people to learn to think like a doctor. And so I created this acronym many years ago called MMESHH, and I use it to help guide individuals when they're coming into, especially their Parkinson's doctor's visit appointment, to learn to think like Dr. Simuni, or to learn to think like your movement disorders neurologist, because this piece is really important. Your physician has, especially in the Parkinson's disease space, clinicians have this list of things that they know that they need to go through to check in on your health. And so they may actually walk through a lot of these items, whether you're covering it or not. And these are also largely also true for your primary care visits or other medical professionals that you might be working with. And this notion of thinking about your medication. So are they still managing your symptoms? Have you changed any of your medications? Have you changed the dosing or the timing of your medication? Something that's incredibly important for your physician to know. Have you started any new exercise routines, or are you exercising? Something that we know is as important as medication for managing Parkinson's disease symptoms. And then you want to make sure that you're walking your physician through any symptom changes that you may be experiencing. So any changes in walking or balance, any concerns that you have with driving or your ability to conduct your activities of daily living, whether that's bathing or doing your banking. Have you experienced any changes in your memory or any compulsive behaviors like excessive shopping or gambling? Very important to me and my colleagues, are there any changes in your speech, your swallowing, or your ability to communicate with others? Is your mood affected? Do you feel more anxious, or do you feel more depressed? Are you falling more frequently? And so this symptom list is something that your physician is absolutely interested in, and it should make your problem list in terms of the things that are cueing you for items that you may want to discuss with your doctor. And then lastly, are there any new health or hospitalization issues that may be important to you? So have you had to visit the hospital, or have you had a new diagnosis? So once you have your problem list together, and you've prioritized it, and you've thought about all the critical pieces that your physician's going to use from that MMESHH list to help to manage your care and to help optimize your quality of life, then you really want to be thinking about where's the space that you're going to have your telehealth visit. And Daniel covered some of these aspects, and I'm going to highlight a few specific components that may be relevant for people with Parkinson's disease. But your physician did a lot of thinking when he or she designed their office space around the type of space they wanted to create for seeing their clients and seeing their patients. And we need to be thinking similarly when we are having a telehealth visit at home. Daniel pointed out the very important part of thinking about minimizing distractions. And another important piece to that is to minimize exposure to others in your home. So here you see a screenshot of someone's video with someone jumping up and down behind them. For me, sometimes this is my cat who chooses inopportune moments to walk across my video camera. But your physician, in that limited time that they have with you, really wants to focus on you. And so unless it's your care partner or another family member that you want to have in the appointment with you, then you want to secure a space in your home where you can have this appointment in private. You want to pick a room with your best internet connection. And if your house is like my house, that may vary a little bit room by room, depending on where your modem and your router may be located. And so you want to make sure that you're picking that room that has an ideal connection. And then make sure that you can move if you need to for the exam, especially in a Parkinson's disease clinic visit. Your physician may want to see your tremor or may want to see you move your hands or your legs. And in this case, it can be very important in terms of the positioning of your computer or of your tablet or of your phone. Daniel highlighted how important it was to make sure your mouth and face are visible. This is really true for people with Parkinson's disease, and that's because we know that speech can be affected in about 90% of all people who live with Parkinson's disease. Speech sounds can be harder to make out, the voice gets quieter, and we also know from research that if people can both see your mouth and hear your words, that it increases the clarity of your speech by about 70%. And so making sure that your mouth and your face are visible, that the lighting is good, as Daniel pointed out. And here specifically for a telehealth visit in Parkinson's disease, it may be important to have an external camera, even though a camera may be built into your device, or to consider using a tablet or a phone for your telehealth visit, so that if you need to move around to have the camera focus on different regions of your body that the physician needs to examine, that you have the flexibility to do so. Certainly, if a computer is sitting on our desk, that can be challenging to do. And even with a laptop, it may be difficult unless you have an external camera. Daniel pointed out this importance of lighting, and I'm going to emphasize that again because of that need to be able to see the mouth when someone is speaking to optimize understanding. He highlighted it, I'm highlighting it again here. This is a really important component, especially if your physician is wanting to see fine muscle movements or a slight tremor that's in your hand. Having that optimal lighting can make the difference in how your physician is able to assess you. I'm going to amplify another point that Daniel raised, which is thinking about that external microphone or a headset that has a microphone on it. Again, people with Parkinson's disease can have a quieter voice, and sometimes the microphones that are built into laptops may not be robust enough or strong enough to be able to pick up your voice. Specifically in people with Parkinson's disease, so Daniel was using earbuds that have a microphone on them. I'm using the same thing. But for people who have Parkinson's disease, a headset that has a microphone attached to it, what we call a boom microphone, can be very helpful, especially for people who may have dyskinesias or extra movements. This means that your headset stays still, the microphone stays at a fixed distance from your mouth, which makes it easier for your speech to be understood and reduces the chance that the microphone might rub on your clothes or on other body parts that would create an unpleasant noise for the physician when he or she is listening to you during the visit. So getting prepped up for that appointment, you've got your problem list together, you've clarified all the information you need, you've set up your virtual space for your appointment, and then about 24 hours before, you want to test all of those things. You want to, if you are able to, test the software platform that's going to be used for your appointment. You want to check all the audio settings and video settings for your equipment. You want to make sure that any necessary software or apps have been downloaded. Verify that your telehealth space is ready to go, and then review your problem list one more time. So when you think about this, it's like, gosh, that's going to take a lot of preparation. And it's actually true. Telehealth visits are more efficient in a way because we don't have to drive to the physician's office and drive back home. They're certainly safer in today's healthcare concern environment, but they do take a little bit more preparation. One piece of advice I'm going to offer, because almost all telehealth visits will include some aspect of video and audio, is that it may be helpful to hardwire into your internet. So when we conduct telehealth interventions, which we do with people all over the world, I know we have some folks here today from other countries, and the work that we do stretches into the UK, into Africa, and into other regions. And whenever we are conducting our interventions via telehealth modalities, we always do one thing, which is send an Ethernet cable, which is this cable that's in the blue coloring that will plug into what's called an Ethernet port or an LAN port, and then will allow you to plug directly into your modem. Now, why do we do that? We do that because even in communities where the internet speed is high, when you are connected via Wi-Fi, it can actually, you can be throttled, meaning that those speeds might be adjusted or reduced. And if you're in my house where there's multiple people working at the same time on computers, because we're all working from home these days, then that can also affect the quality of your internet coverage through audio and through video, specifically if you're connected through Wi-Fi. So this little trick of connecting directly to your modem can really optimize the quality of your video and audio for your telehealth visit, make things a lot easier for your healthcare provider, and also ensure that you're getting the best care. If you're working off a tablet or working off of a laptop that doesn't have one of these ports, you can buy very inexpensively for between $5 and $10 an adapter that will plug into most internet ports or plug into most computer ports that will allow you to then plug in an Ethernet cable and go directly to your modem. So really, independent of the device that you're using, this is an option and can really make the difference for the quality of your visit. We encourage people to minimize disruptions. And matter of fact, something Danielle encouraged us and Nancy encouraged us all to do at the beginning of this webinar, to make sure that you have other programs that might be open on your computer closed. So you don't want to get a message from someone or a pop-up with an email or an ad that comes up right in the middle of your doctor's visit. So make sure that those are turned off. Make sure that your operating system software is up to date. Lots of people are afraid to do these updates, but they're important to do to make sure that other pieces of software are working well with your computer and that all of your security settings are up to date. We do recommend, though, if you're having frequent telehealth visits, that you turn off the auto update function and that you set a calendar reminder to check for any software updates. And the reason for this is similar to something that happened to me yesterday, where I was in the middle of a meeting and the university pushed an update to my computer as an auto update, and it kicked me out of my meeting. The same thing can happen to you during your doctor's visit. So ensuring that all those updates are done before your visit, and maybe considering setting a calendar reminder instead of the auto update function if you're having frequent visits. So I'm a speech language pathologist by training, a researcher by occupation, and all of my work focuses on communication, building and maintaining relationships, reducing social isolation, and optimizing quality of life. And nowhere is that more relevant than in these telehealth appointments. So people with Parkinson's disease can have some particular challenges through this video interface using telehealth. For one thing, your facial expressions might be a little flattened because of Parkinson's disease. And so reading emotions without all of the rest of the body cues might be challenging for your physician. Also, because your voice may be a little bit quieter, the words may be harder to understand, there's more opportunities for communication breakdowns. That's indeed what I study in my research. And we've actually been looking at the rate and prevalence and type of communication breakdowns that happen over video interfaces, specifically for people with Parkinson's disease, and how we fix those. And so here in the physician's visit, these have big consequences. It might mean that your medications aren't adjusted correctly, or your physician doesn't really know what you need. So one of the things that we recommend is keeping a thick black pen, something like a Sharpie or another thick marker, and just plain white paper or index cards beside you when you have your appointment. If there's a word that your physician doesn't understand, you can write that word down. You can write down a sentence or a question that you can then show to the camera if your words are not completely clear to the physician. Because writing can be challenging for some people with Parkinson's disease, we suggested it might be better to actually make some of these cards ahead of time. So you can make a card that says, "Slow down, please. I have a question. Can you repeat that?" Or even write down symptom cards like pain, swallowing difficulties, walking problems, all those things that come from your problem list that you've created. So you make those cards ahead of time. And if your physician's really having trouble understanding what you're trying to get across to him or to her, you can simply show the card to clarify what you're intending to say. And here it is so very critical that you advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to say, "I didn't understand that. I didn't follow you. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry. I don't think I got all of that." Right? Make sure and let your physician know before he or she moves through the appointment that there's something that you need clarifying. So I'll wrap this up here so we can move on to the questions by reminding us all to be patient with ourselves and to be patient with your healthcare provider. My famous line these days with my students and everyone else is, we're all doing the best we can, but on most days our best isn't quite good enough. And that's true here as well. Your physicians are working incredibly hard. And as I said earlier, they may have Zoom fatigue. I think yesterday I was on Zoom calls for almost 14 hours straight. So they may not be quite their jolly selves asking about family and other things in your lives. That's okay. They're still very, very, very concerned about you. So be patient with yourself and be patient with them. Make sure that you plan ahead of time and organize your visit, because these telehealth visits can be shorter, and you need to get through your information more efficiently. And then lastly, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Make sure that you let your physician know what you've understood and what you did not understand, so that you and your healthcare provider are on the same page. So I'm going to pass this back over. I really appreciate your time, and I'm open to your questions. I'm going to stop my screen share now so that I can pass this back over to our Parkinson's Foundation team.
Great, thank you so much, Angela. That was so helpful. So thank you for your expertise. And now, like Angela said, I will be opening up this. This is our Q&A section, and we will have both presenters answering your questions. So just bear with me while I look up some of these questions that came in. So we have a lot of great questions. Daniel, I'm going to start with you. So there's a question regarding apps. It says, don't apps eat up a lot of data on your phone, making you pay more to use your phone?
The apps don't. What makes you eat up data is not being connected to Wi-Fi. So what I mean by that is, if you have a smartphone, if you are connected to Wi-Fi instead of cellular, then if you're using the Wi-Fi, you're not using your data plan. So you're not using any of your minutes. You're not using any of that data that's given to you monthly. Okay. So when you can connect to Wi-Fi, I suggest that you do. So it's not necessarily the app that eats up data. It's how you're connected to the internet, either through cellular or through Wi-Fi.
Perfect, thank you. This next question is going to go to Angela. This will be a PD specific question. So my husband no longer has the use of his right hand. As a result, he has trouble typing emails and otherwise using the computer keyboard. What would you recommend to keep him connected online? And then Daniel, actually, you can answer this after Angela does as well.
So I really appreciate that question. And we sometimes forget that Parkinson's disease can affect one side more than the other. And there may be other health conditions that affect the use of hands. And if we're so dependent right now on chatting and typing, that can create real challenges. One of the things that I would offer that may be helpful here is to ask or talk to your physician about a consult to an occupational therapist. So occupational therapists can be very helpful in a couple of things, teaching one-handed typing techniques, which are surprisingly quick to learn. There are also one-handed keyboards. So there are keyboards specifically designed for people to type with that can interface with a phone, a tablet, a laptop, a desktop. So it's a modified keyboard that lets people type quasi normally, although you still have to learn a few new skills, but to do that in a one-handed way. So there is an equipment solution. There is a therapy solution in terms of working with an expert to help you with this. One of the other components that may be helpful here is doing a voice to text. So an application that will allow you to speak and then convert that into text. That can be challenging as well for people with Parkinson's disease. So it does take a little bit of trial and error here. The common kind of approach that people say is just, oh, go to a voice to text app. That's not as clearly effective for people with PD because again, some of these apps are not particularly good about properly kind of translating the voice of someone with Parkinson's disease. But there are some that are better than others. And I'll be happy to pass those along to Jess so she can send those out to the group. So again, an OT consult, considering an adapted keyboard, combination of adding voice to text, it may take a variety of methods to really optimize your communication.
Great, thank you, Angela. Daniel, do you want to add anything to that?
She took the words right out of my mouth. The only thing I was going to suggest was the voice to text feature. Again, I know definitely with Apple products, it is built right into the keyboard. So if you normally were to text something to somebody, there's a little microphone icon that you can tap on and speak into it. But again, as Angela said, it really depends on your speech. But most of these technologies, the more you use it, the device is able to understand you better. So it takes a while. It takes a lot of patience to do that. But that would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think to Daniel's point, while Jess keeps up the next question, that's an excellent point, right? What we call the machine learning algorithms that are now built into these devices means that the more you use it with your specific voice, the better it gets for you. So while it can be frustrating at the outset, going through that process of trying and then correcting actually teaches your device to be better suited for your use. So I think that's a great point, that frustration, yes, but with time it will get a little bit better.
And I'll just add one quick point to that too, is just for an example. So I use Siri quite a bit through my Apple devices. Siri only recognizes my voice. It doesn't recognize my wife's voice. So again, just throwing that out there.
It becomes intuitive basically and works with you. Great, thank you.
Kind of cool and it's kind of scary at the same time.
Yes, right. Thank you both of you for answering that question so well. Danielle, I'm going to do the next question to you. So it says, do these apps collect any personal information? And then there's a follow-up, is Wi-Fi safe at coffee shops and stores, etc.?
Let's see, do apps, depends on the app. So I can only really speak, I do a lot of teaching with the iPhone and iPad, so I can't speak specifically to this with Android as much. But when you first download the app and you open it for the first time, the device will ask you, can we use your location? Can we send you push notifications? I always decline push notifications because I'm going to get bombarded with stuff from that particular app. And if it is an app that requires my location, like a weather app or a map app, I'm going to have it use my location. So does it collect data about you? Yes. How much and what they do with that data? That's the whole big question. What was the other question?
Basically, the follow-up was, is it safe to use? I apologize. I just want to.
Oh, Wi-Fi in a public, yes. The key, it is safe, but the key when doing Wi-Fi in a public place is to find out the name of the Wi-Fi network. So for example, if I go to Starbucks and I go and connect to their, I go to turn on my Wi-Fi and I might see Starbucks guest, Starbucks employees, Starbucks this, Starbucks that. I need to ask the person behind the counter, which is the correct one that I need to connect to. Because what some people do is they carry around with them portable wireless routers and they can fake a network just by simply naming their network Starbucks ABC. And all of a sudden you just click on it because it says Starbucks without thinking about it. And all of a sudden you are now connected to their Wi-Fi and they can eavesdrop on your information. So the key is to find out the name of the network, the specific network that you need to connect to, and don't connect to any other one.
And then that is generally safe then with those?
Yep. I mean, I personally wouldn't do any banking on a public network, but checking my email, checking my Facebook page, you know, privacy is one of those things where it's really a personal choice. Okay. If someone wants to eavesdrop on my email, fine, go for it. Doesn't bother me. But I don't want them eavesdropping on my banking. So I'm not going to do any banking or any super important stuff on a public network.
I think to follow up on Daniel's point, from a telehealth visit standpoint, you may only be able to log into that visit from a secured network. And sometimes those systems will not let you log in from like a Starbucks. And so you might say, gosh, I wouldn't take my appointment at a Starbucks, but some people might, right? And so it's important to realize that for me, your healthcare is similar to banking, right? I would try to make sure that you are in a secure space from a network perspective, as well as from just a physical perspective. Your physician, for example, may need to see a part of your body covered with clothing and ask you to partially undress, right? And so you don't want to be in the position of not optimizing your visit for that reason. So I think while that may seem just kind of intuitive, I think it's worth saying that A, it's not a good idea, and B, you might actually be blocked from logging into your telehealth visit if you're not on a secure network.
No, that's a great point. And Angela, I'm going to go right into this. So are all apps for telehealth HIPAA compliant?
So thank you for that question. If your physician is using that app, if it's coming from a healthcare provider who is a licensed healthcare provider, whether that's a physician or someone like me who's a licensed speech language pathologist, absolutely, they have to abide by HIPAA compliant rules. Does that mean that they're all really smart? Most physicians' offices, that's true. I have had a couple of recent interactions with other healthcare professionals who were not as savvy and were actually using platforms that were not HIPAA compliant. So I think it's okay to ask, especially if you're seeing someone who's maybe in a private practice or, you know, someone who's not through a mainstream health network, that it's okay to ask them, is the system you're using HIPAA compliant? And most of them should actually have documentation to that effect. We are required by our licensing and by laws and by regulations to only use HIPAA compliant systems for telehealth, but people may have different levels of knowledge and understanding about those. So always good to ask, but I think most of the time you can probably trust that because our license depends on it, we're going to be using a HIPAA compliant system.
And Angela, I should have said first, not everyone maybe knows exactly what HIPAA stands
for. Sure. Yes, again, we do have an international audience as well. So it's called HIPAA, it's called PHIPAA, depending on where you are. Internationally, though, there are standards around patient privacy, what we're allowed to share, with whom we're allowed to share it, how we communicate with patients. And so whether you are in the UK or you're in Canada or here or in Turkey or in another country, for the most part around the world, there are two things where privacy is absolutely paramount. One is in healthcare, and there are laws to protect privacy there. And the other is in research. Laws are there to protect your privacy in the context of research. So even doing research in telehealth or medical care in telehealth, we are obligated by laws to uphold those, and those laws are very strict, and the fines are very, very steep, as in the tens of thousands of dollars for even a minor case of privacy violation. So we take that really seriously. So HIPAA or PHIPAA or whatever the regulations are in your country are those set of policies that are designed to protect your privacy and your interactions with your healthcare professional over your care. They vary a little bit from place to place, but overall the international standards are relatively similar.
Perfect. So we have just a couple more minutes for the Q&A. I want to try to get in just a couple more questions here. So Daniel, does Grubhub take away from restaurant profits? Why use Instacart instead of the grocery store's own delivery service?
Okay, Grubhub, does it take away profits from the restaurants? I wouldn't think so. If anything, they would probably add to their profits. I do know that Grubhub partners with specific restaurants for discounts in some cases. But if people are ordering food, whether they're dining in or ordering it and getting from Grubhub, I mean, I think it's beneficial. Otherwise, it wouldn't be around. If restaurants weren't going to do it, they wouldn't use it. The other question, what was the other question? Instacart.
Yes, why use it?
Yeah, that's a good question. In Rochester, New York, where I'm at, there's Wegmans, and some of you may have heard about Wegmans, different parts of the country. It's a pretty popular shopping store or grocery store. But I have a Wegmans app and I have an Instacart app. It just depends on what it is that I want. It used to be with my Wegmans app that I could have them delivered through the Wegmans app, and now Wegmans has partnered with Instacart. So I can still use my Wegmans app, and I still use that for my daily shopping to make grocery lists and so on, and when I go through the store. But if I'm going to order groceries, I just go through Instacart. It really depends on your personal preference and whether or not that grocery store has their own app.
Perfect. Thank you. And one last question, Angela, and we still have more questions that are great, and I apologize we can't get to them, but my insurance company is only approving telehealth visits on a monthly basis, so only until August. It's not a guarantee that they'll continue to cover it. Are there supplemental resources I could look at to help cover additional visits?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's an evolving space. So earlier you heard me say that we're all doing our best, and sometimes our best isn't good enough. And this is one of those our best isn't good enough spaces. Depending on where you live, depending on the status of the positivity rates and cases in your area, insurance companies are starting to pull back on their coverage of telehealth. That said, I would keep an eye on this because it is a rapidly evolving space. For example, for some telehealth visits that were traditionally never covered underneath insurance, that were only covered during this kind of special time period that the government set aside. There is now a law-based policy that's kind of revolving around state senates and state House of Representatives, and it only needs one more state to approve it before it will make telehealth the law of the nation, which typically then means insurance companies will have to follow and pay for it. So I think this is a really dynamic space, and every time I open up my news feed about medical coverage, Medicare coverage, this seems to be changing daily. So keep on top of that. I think from a Parkinson space, we actually owe it to the people we work with, Jesse, Nancy, and others, to be an advocate in this space from a national level and a state level to say for the folks we serve, this telehealth modality actually opens up potential access to healthcare providers that they didn't have previously, and we actually can take an advocacy space there. From this specific case, if coverage does not flip over by August, then I would work with your physician's office. It may be that they can put a special case in place that says, for example, you may have extraordinary health circumstances to where it would not be safe for you to come into their office, and they can help fight on your behalf. From a case management perspective. And it may also be, I know some physicians who are just really reducing rates and still seeing their patients that way, even if there's not great coverage, they're just not taking the coverage, or they're reducing the cost of office visits to try to make that work, especially for people who are really high risk. So I don't have any solid answers to that other than we can advocate nationally, individuals need to advocate, physicians are certainly advocating, and this is a rapidly changing space. I don't know right now of any supplemental policies that are specifically there for telehealth. So like a telehealth, override, or a telehealth, additional coverage policy. But I'll certainly do some looking into that and pass that along to Jessica so she can send it down the line if that would be helpful.
That would be great. Thank you so much, you two. And that's the end of our Q&A session, and we're going to be finishing our program. So we do hope to see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for our program, Putting Your Best Voice Forward with PD. In this program, you will learn about tools and strategies to strengthen communication, relationships, and one's sense of self, helping people with PD feel heard and understood. And also for a complete lineup of our PD Health at Home virtual programs and for a recording of today's session, visit parkinson.org/PD Health. Again, a huge thank you to Daniel Jones and Angela Roberts for your time and knowledge today, and also to all of our attendees for joining us. We really appreciate it. Always, for up-to-date Parkinson's information and support, please visit our website at parkinson.org or call our toll-free helpline at 1-800-4PD-INFO. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and stay healthy and safe.